Welcome to the Real Estate Show on WGBF AM with your host, Charlie Butler. This is where you'll learn to sell your home quickly and for more money. And now, the host of the Real Estate Show, the guy who guarantees to sell your home or he'll buy it himself, Charlie Butler.
Good Sunday morning, Tri-State. This is the Real Estate Show with Charlie Butler. And as I am every Sunday, I'm here with my co-host, Evie Barr.
Happy Labor Day weekend, Charlie.
Happy Labor Day weekend, Evie. And you've got big plans this weekend?
You know, just relaxing and enjoying that extra day off. So what about you?
I am actually, when our show's over, I am flying to Las Vegas later this afternoon.
Oh, a little gambling for the week, huh?
Only go to People Watch, Evie.
It's the best part of it.
Yeah. So I was curious, we hadn't talked about it, from your appearance on WKDQ, where Leslie and Dave trying to get you a date.
Yes.
Did that work out?
That did not work out. The funny story of the month was I went to a friend's birthday party, and she decided, it was all of us girls, and she decided to have a medium there to do readings. So I walk in, and after a couple of minutes, she told me to hold out my left palm so she could read it. And within a minute or so of me holding out my left palm, she just looked at me and said, "You need to stay away from online dating. It will not work for you." And I about lost it. I thought, she knows me. She's good. So if you need a good ring, go to me, Madam Faye. She knows you.
So what about on radio dating? The way we've tried it on this show and with Leslie and Dave,
No more on radio dating as of now. I do know that I got Fireball Friday started for Dave and Leslie. So that's always fun to listen to. And
yeah, you're going to get Dave fired probably.
I might have to give him another bottle of Fireball soon, though.
So what's going on in the world of mortgages?
You know, we are keeping busy. Applications are still looking good. Rates dipped just a little bit this week, which is always nice. Still out there, promoting that Waterstone is a full service bank. We've got any and every mortgage program, from the government programs, the USDA, VA, FHA, to the conventional loans. We have great doctor programs. We're starting to focus on programs to get set up with employers to help their employees on financing. So that's a lot of what we're doing right now.
That's great. Hey, I wanted to ask you, I read something this last week. Dave Clark's with us today, too, from Talon Mortgage.
Hello, Evansville.
And Dave may be able to jump in here. He may know something. But I was reading the other day that there's going to be a percentage of the loans. There wasn't a lot of details in here from Fannie and Freddie that would no longer need appraisals.
They are looking at doing that. I'm sure, there's going to be specific criteria that applicant has to have in order to meet those guidelines. I don't know how I feel about that. I still think it's great to have an appraisal done just so you know where you stand on the value. It would have to be an excellent buyer for, that to happen. High credit scores, low debt to income ratio, and equity in the home.
Yeah, it seems like, David, I know you focus a Talon more on commercial, but had you heard about that?
Well, I do keep my nose in mostly commercial files and let the residential people like Evie do their job. And but I do hear a lot of rumors, and so I did read into it a little bit. And it's going to be mostly on refinances where they already knew that the person had bought the property for X amount, because that's public knowledge now. Right. And if it comes in substantially higher than that, they are going to do an appraisal. But if they're doing a refinance based off the value of the purchase price or lower, where the client may have already put down a substantial amount in the first place, just to keep it streamlined, I believe that's where their line of thinking is. I think you're going to be grasping to see people doing a purchase and not doing an appraisal.
Right.
Yes.
I know, Dave, you and I have seen it on the commercial side at times on smaller commercial deals, especially with local banks, where if they have a very strong client, they'll drive by.
Oh, there's certainly been times, and I know there was times that you actually sold me houses and we had to hurry it up. Said if you buy these, and it had to be a package. They wanted me to buy all of them, and they wanted me to do it in like 2 weeks. And it was like,
Right.
that's almost impossible, right? But we did have some of our lenders that we had great relationships with that went ahead and did it without the appraisals. Just hurried up and funded it for us. But believe me, they turned around and had some appraisals done after we had the deal done. And if those would have came in short, they would have reached out and told me I need to give them a little bit more money. But on the commercial side, they can be a little bit more flexible. Because we don't have the TRID guidelines. Let's call them guidelines versus laws. Very gray, right, Evie?
Yes, very much so. You know what TRID stands for, correct? The reason I drink.
Is that where Fireball Friday came in?
That's right.
I like that.
So Evie, do you want to just? I even hate to go here, but do you want to quickly explain TRID to the listeners?
Well, TRID came around in October of 2015. It was brought on by when the market crashed, and the government was putting in place new things to make the consumer more aware and to protect the consumer. They changed our guidelines as to how quickly we can close, say, after we get the appraisal, or the buyer must receive what's called now a closing disclosure. Some people still call it a settlement statement. The buyer has to receive the settlement statement 3 business days before closing. They have to acknowledge that they received it. Just different items like that were put into place really to further protect the consumer so they don't get into closing and all of a sudden have this smack them in the face that they have to bring X amount more than what they might have thought.
Evie, that was really nice how you said that. You said in a nice way that they were really had their stuff together and trying to do things the right way, but versus my the way I look at it, that they just got in and they literally screwed everything up, which is the reason you drank. So
yes, you know me that well already. No, I agree with you, Dave, in the fact that I understand what the government was trying to do. At the same time, it does bring confusion to the buyer as well. How we have to disclose the loan estimate now, which used to be the good faith estimate. I think the good faith estimate was a whole lot more clear and understandable than what now the loan estimate is. People have always been confused by things like the APR, which is a government calculation. Now they have a new calculation. I hate to say it, I can't think of it, but it's the percentage of the loan amount that you'll pay back in interest over the life of the loan. So some of it just becomes confusing for the consumer because it's so much information.
Getting in the weeds, Evie.
Yeah.
Charlie's like, wait, it's too much information.
Yeah.
See?
We were going quickly here.
You're that consumer.
Let's go back. I really think it all boils down, and we can use names here because none of them are in the business anymore. Very first closing ever, Evansville Title, which is no longer here.
Right.
Nina Rogers is doing it. And so the buyer comes in and he sits down and he says, I'm going to read this mortgage. And so he decides he's going to read the mortgage. He gets to page 2 and he says, what's all this stuff meaning he's lost? What's it mean anyway? Nina never lets a smile leave her face. She says, sir, it's real simple. If you pay, you stay. If you don't, you won't.
That's exactly right.
And, that's what all those documents actually mean when it gets right down to it. Mm-hmm.
As long as you make your payment on time, you don't have to worry about the majority of the information in there because it's going into default. And I recently had a buyer who wanted their closing package up front so they could review it, which was great. But I had to tell her, these are all standard documents used for every loan. You cannot change anything on these documents. So it's great that you want to read them up front, but she kind of liked to pencil mark things I gave her so you aren't able to change them.
I know what Dave's thinking about right now.
I know what you're thinking. I see it on your face. Oh my gosh, Evie. I'll make a long story short, but Charlie and I had a guy. He bought 13 triplexes.
Right.
Okay. And so he wanted to do 13 loans in case he ever sells one, et cetera, et cetera. We were trying to package them all together for him, but he wanted to do all 13 separate. We sit down at the closing table, and 13 and a half hours later.
1 o'clock.
I've heard this story.
Yes, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we sit out at the closing table. The guy, as Dave said, so United Fidelity is doing the loan, and they, remember?
Some
Some
were United, some we had to mix it up.
But anyway, the package was so big, they were bringing documents to Progressive Land Title on Main by hand trucks.
Wow.
Just over and over.
Right.
So this guy, we figure, okay, he's a reader. He's going to sign. They're all 13 of them the same. He'll sign the first one, and it'll take a couple hours, but he'll blow through the rest of them.
Right.
Dave and I, they were still closing. Dave and I think, walked out there at 20 to 1 in the morning.
Wow.
Something like that. And
well, he got through that first reading of the entire package, and we all had a sigh of relief. We're like, oh, good, he's done. And I said, now the rest of them are exactly the same. And he started reading from page 1 on the second package, and I looked at Charlie. I said,
so that was a trade closing before trade even happened.
Yeah, that was before trade was cool, which is not cool now. We are going to eat up Dave's time, so let's get to Dave Clark here. Dave is, for those that don't know him, Dave's one of the largest single-family real estate investors, and owns a lot of apartments too, but really made his name with, he owns a lot of single-family homes, both rentals and rehabbing and resell them. If you ever see one of Dave's houses out there for sale and you're looking for something, be sure to look at it, because Dave does a fabulous job.
Thank you.
And Dave also owns Talon Mortgage, which is a commercial mortgage company. Dave and I have done millions of dollars together over the years with clients from all over the country, in fact. And we'll stop with 3 companies here. We'll go, and also ERS Property Management.
Yes, and we're soon to be switching over to Clark Miller Property Management.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, I always tried to just let them run it, because when we started, and that's a good story too about how we started. Charlie's actually involved on that, but I tried to keep my name out of it because I didn't have time for it, and to let Jonathan Miller do most of the operations.
Right.
But
he does
my
a
name's
good job. Yeah,
we tried to keep my name out of it, but it's gotten so involved. We're like, okay, let's go ahead and put the name in there. And because they want to use more of the approach of marketing that, that Dave Clark and Jonathan Miller are actually the owners of it. Some people, I don't know why, but some people think it adds clout. But I think it should probably scare people off if they think I have anything to do with it.
But this started around 2004, 2005, Dave?
It started on a golf course, so that's
I
probably
know it started on the golf course, but it was in the really, really good times for real estate.
So Charlie, let me tell this story, buddy. I'm going to probably throw you in the bus a little bit.
I know you are, Dave. So
That's good for him.
Yeah. So Charlie, actually, it turned out to be a good idea, but Charlie is the man of ideas. And you know what? You can't have as many good ideas that Charlie's had without a bunch of bad ideas. So, so I thought for sure this is one of Charlie's bad ideas, but it was his money. So I'm like, all right. So he tells me he's going to start advertising nationwide. And you know what? If you advertise out in San Francisco or L.A. or New York, you are paying huge advertising dollars just for little bitty ads. But he said, let's start advertising in these other areas. And he's like, will you still be able to lend to these people coming in from out of town so far away? Because we like local relationships. But I said, sure, we'll look into that. But
thinking I would never actually do it, okay?
I said, Charlie, you're crazy. It's going to cost you a lot of money, and we're busy enough as is. Well, Charlie, he doesn't. He has no limits. So he figures he'll just grow his team bigger, which he had. But next thing you know, these phone calls start coming in, and people are buying real estate in Evansville.
From San Francisco, L.A., San Jose, everywhere.
They were flying in every weekend.
Yeah.
We had people flying in, meeting with us, talking real estate. And this hype, it went on for years until the big implosion.
And that started again a little bit.
Oh, it has. Yeah. I'm talking to somebody all the time from out of town now. Evansville, Indiana, they said, is the best kept secret out there. Return on investment in Evansville, Indiana just has people excited coming in here all the time. They're like, you could buy that house for how much and rent it for how much? and it just doesn't exist in their markets. So they were coming in town all the time, and they're buying the heck out of houses. But they were very happy with Charlie. They were very happy with our company. We built good relationships with people, really liked them.
And this is, you were doing, we'll make it clear, you were doing the financing at this time.
Yes.
This is before property management, yeah.
Yes. I didn't want to have, Charlie asked me about property management. I said, look, if I've got time to manage other people's properties, then I'll just buy more. No sense of managing other people's properties. Right. But they just weren't really excited about having people they didn't know, because they'd met Charlie and I and had good relationships, managing their properties. And they kept telling Charlie, you know what, and a lot of them had asked me, why don't you manage my properties? You'll make money off of it. And I kept telling them I just don't have time. But it was really going to slow business down. Charlie said, Dave, hey, you're doing the lending. I'm doing the sales. We need to do something about management. So I actually talked to Jonathan Miller, who's actually my partner right now. He was working for me, managing all my stuff. And I said, hey, I know you're busy managing my stuff, but you willing to work more hours, manage for other people? He jumped right on it, and that's how I got started.
And we thought, Dave and I both thought, he'll get, this really won't make any money. He'll may get 20 or 30 extra properties. How many properties you got now?
We're over 800 now.
Wow.
It's
all in the Evansville area, or do you go to the outlining counties
if you
well?
call Warwick County outlining, we just don't really get out too far because we got enough going on here. So
sure.
We've certainly looked into it for other investors that do have homes in other areas. But laws are different. You've got to have a staff there. Got to have people that are doing the evictions, or doing the leasing, doing the maintenance, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a lot to set up, but we already had that in place with my properties here.
And with the property management company, is your primary focus on single-family residences or apartment complexes, or does it make a difference?
We have a mix of everything. What we are not chasing, and where we'll refer it out to somebody else, is maybe like this building that we're in right now. So
sure.
It's kind of huge mixed commercial building. We only want to do what we feel like we're truly experts at. Everybody always says, why don't you venture into that? And it's like, well, I don't know. You want me to do heart surgery on you too?
No.
Well, actually, we had one investor from California. Dave and I are at, we used to take people to Max and Irma's. They'd see the riverfront and everything, and I'm selling the property. Dave's doing the mortgage. The guy says, what about property management? We don't, and David set it up by now. Well, we got property management too, he says, and he was like, this is like Green Acres. This is like Mr. Haney here, Just go to the other side of the truck and pull down another sign.
Is that the one that'd say, have I got a deal for you?
Yeah. He always had this truck, and somebody'd want something, he'd just pull down another sign. But we're dating ourselves. Probably a lot of people out there don't remember Green Acres. But Dave, I want to talk a little bit too. You've been a successful investor for a long time. And I know there's a lot of people out there wondering, how'd you get started? Or what's a good way to get – you may not want to – maybe you started the wrong way, but, what's a good way to get started?
I will tell you that, it is a longer story how I got started. It was kind of pretty cool, which I think I've told you before and you may not remember. But let's get past that and go to a good way to get started, because I have made mistakes. Guys like a Dave Herman local, which
Dave's been on here before.
Spends most of his time in Florida now.
Yeah,
good for him. The best thing to do, I believe, is to learn from other people's mistakes, because I jumped in head first, and I made a lot of mistakes. And fortunately, I made it through those mistakes. I've seen investors jump in head first, not take advice from others, and certainly get buried. So it is good to research a lot of these young guys that their research is a lot of times on the internet, and I believe that's good. You can learn a lot by doing Google searches or what have you, but ask a lot of questions to experienced investors. They're out there. There's enough of them out there to just ask a ton of questions, and hopefully they're going to give you the right information. Some investors don't like to see other investors get in the market, but I believe there's enough room for everybody out there. There's a lot of houses for sale all the time, and the ones people aren't fighting over are the ones that need a lot of work.
Well, and I know there's guys like you mentioned Dave Herman earlier. There's guys like yourself and Dave Herman, I know there are others that enjoy helping the new investors too.
That's one of the greatest parts of what I do is taking somebody who has no clue what they're doing and watching them build. I just love watching it happen. So,
and I know you do. I've seen this with you before.
Yeah. I'll take on one or two new guys every year. Really, I'm working with one guy right now this year and haven't taken anybody else on because he is so excited about it, so passionate about it, and he wants to buy more than what he should at one time. But that's part of it. Yeah, to try to get him to slow down. But no, it's.
So if someone's waiting to get into investment properties, where can they find someone to reach out to?
You know what? Charlie's a good, he's got a great Rolodex of those people. So I would start with Charlie or his team.
Right.
And because, it's Charlie's busy enough, not everybody can just reach out to Charlie. However, Charlie, is it safe to say they can just actually call your office?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can, I'll give you my cell phone even. It's 812-499-7758. Feel free to call me. Either, as Dave said, either myself or someone on my team who, we deal with guys like Dave and Dave Herman we talked about and many others like that. And most of those guys there's a few that aren't, that are more secretive, but most guys are really willing to help.
I'm drawing a blank. What's the name of the association for the rental housing? Thank you.
Property Owners and Managers Association. Dave and I were two of the founders of that.
Yep.
And it does, and that's something else. Going to POMA meetings.
We meet quarterly still, and we'll have a big event down at the casino here, Tropicana. We'll rent one of their big rooms, and people will come in. We always have a guest speaker for them. And that's a good way for them to learn as well. It's called POMA. There's a website. It's all caps, POMA. And of Evansville, I don't know if there's anything else POMA out there in the nation that would pop up, but
Monty's still president, isn't he?
Monty is president. Yep.
Monty Fetter, who has been on the show before. Monty is, Monty's president. You can always reach out to Dave. You can reach out to Monty Fetter at his office. I mean, Monty's always glad to help. I mean, the point is, there are a lot of ways out there to get started.
Well, and I tell you, if you're just apprehensive about it and you want to check into just making sure that you would qualify for it, I'm going to give my office number, which is 812-436-9500. And we try to prep them to let them know, hey, before you try to get a commercial loan, because it is different. First of all, the packages are smaller. However, we want to make sure they're ready. If you go to Evie to get a residential loan, she gets you in a computer, you qualify, you don't. On commercial, you could be the best borrower out there with great credit scores, et cetera, but we want to make sure you're ready in all other aspects because it's like starting another business, and we will help you start that business, actually. We'll get you set up with the right accountants, the right attorneys, and do everything right to where it's not just jumping in and not knowing how to handle it. So
and Dave, the commercial side, much more what Evie does on the residential side is very credit score driven, very debt to income. The commercial side is much more relationship driven.
Absolutely. They could have a couple little nicks on their credit, and we'll still see the strength of, hey, yes, we can still do this because, they could have went through a divorce. They could have had a little hiccup in their life, but they could still have a bunch of money in the bank. And I know, Evie, that's a big headache for you that, hey, I should be able to lend these people money. They have X number of dollars in the bank. They can maybe even pay cash for the house. Right.
The great thing about Waterstone is that they do have more flexibility with lending than previous banks that I've worked for. So that is a great thing about Waterstone. And, I really try and work with people and give them direction if they aren't ready to buy now, how soon they can buy. But like you said, I know in the commercial world, it has always been much more flexible than what residential has.
It is a lot more flexible. But then on the flip side, it could be one of your best borrowers.
Yes.
And they're not ready with us. And sometimes it's just a maturity level of life.
Sure.
If they have 3 brand new cars just because they think they're cool cars and they can afford them, we kind of step back and say, wait a minute, they're out there buying brand new cool cars when they really need to think about what they need to be investing in versus spending.
Dave and I know, and I can't get into too many details in this story, but Dave and I know a local guy who was going to buy a large apartment building, multimillionaire, came with a banker we think he'll be really good with, and the banker just called me later on. I mean, money, no problem. He says, I don't like him.
Yeah, that did happen, and happened more than once.
Dave obviously knows who I'm talking about. I can remember when we were sitting in another banker's office, and finally a banker said, I'm just worried about your experience. And he says, well, have you thought about the part if this thing went 100% vacant? I could pay for it for a really long time.
And he could.
Yeah.
He really could. So if you guys want some advice, when you're sitting down in front of us, don't come across real cocky because
that's never a good thing. So Dave, and I know we kind of got off track, we're short on time, but what's probably some of for an investor, and you've had some really good success. What are some of your top tips for someone who's investing, trying to grow in real estate?
Well, make sure you're checking into everything. If you're just looking at payment, first of all, don't just look at payment plus the rent. Understand that you're going to have some vacancies, but also taxes and insurance, maintenance, and the long-term stuff. A lot of people look at, 20 years have to do a roof, heating and air, et cetera, et cetera. But think about the fact that the tenant can tear it up. If you're in this business long enough, it's going to happen. So budgeting, making sure you have money set aside for miscellaneous or just the things that you never even thought were going to happen, because they will happen.
You mean like somebody? What kind of painting was that house that I?
Charlie, I'm never going to forgive you for that one. She called it sponge painting, but she actually took a real sponge, one of those really big industrial ones, just dipped it in the paint and put squares on the wall. And that.
Oh, wow.
And we were having to take the house back from her, and she goes, well, you'll be real happy with it, because we had just gotten done, made it really nice, sold it to her on contract, had to take it back. And I don't know if she lost her job or what, but she said, you'll be real happy that we sponge painted. And, when people do sponge painting, they pay big money for that sometimes.
Right.
She just dabbed it all over the wall. So, in a bright orange color, too, right, Charlie?
Oh, wow.
I remember that. Of course, I'd already got paid, so I
think my business model changed after that. I'm not paying you, Charlie.
I think your business model changed on that house on Culvert that I sold on contract 3 times.
Yeah.
Wow.
And you paid me each time. None of them stayed there more than 6 months.
Yeah, that was good for you, Charlie.
I think we could have a Dave and Charlie story hour.
Oh my gosh! Actually, every time we meet up, it goes on for hours and hours. Yeah. Speaking of his Vegas trip, don't let him fool you. He's saying that he doesn't gamble; he goes to people watch.
Yes.
There have been times when Charlie will actually call me and say, "You need," because I called him a couple times while he was on the slot machine, and he won. And then I called him another time. He was on the slot machine, and he won. He goes, Dave, you need to start calling. So one time he calls. He goes, I'm not having great luck over here. He goes, can you just hang up and call me back?
I was in St. Louis, and I won and I was playing like a quarter slot. I was just messing around waiting on my wife, actually. And I called Dave and said, you need to call me. I said, I haven't won. And I hit like a $200 jackpot.
Ask him how much of that he gave me.
Exactly.
We are running out of time. Dave Clark, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Dave Clark, look for Clark Miller Property Management and commercial mortgages. Talon Mortgage is a great place to go, but if you got rental property, Clark Miller Property Management. And Evie, I think we're just about done. How can I get a hold of you?
Vegas. People can call me at 812-463-3199.
Charlie Butler team at 812-499-7758. We got to go. This is Charlie, Evie, and Dave. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to The Real Estate Show on WGBF AM with the guy who guarantees to sell your home or he'll buy it himself, Charlie Butler. Join us every week at this time to find out how to sell your home quickly and for more money. For more information, email cbutler@kw.com or visit charliebutlerteam.com.